you. My name is Rasa Katiliana. I am ICF Lithuania chapter leader. So, and the biggest joy, I should say, is to present for you today. I should say the coaching staff. Just applauses everyone. This is Marcia Reynolds with you today. So, Marcia, your stage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you, because I have a lot I want to share with everyone. So please, if you have a question of clarity, if I say something you don't understand, please put it in the chat box. And Rasa, if you see a question, you can interrupt me.
Yeah.
Other than that, I will have time at the end to answer some of your questions. So, write them down and we'll talk then. Okay. And I just want to say that there's a lot of crazy.
Yeah. Please mute your phones, please.
A lot of crazy pollen in the air here, and so I'm a little gravelly, and I may cough. So excuse me for that. Okay. So I want to share with you when I write my books, I usually write them on what I've been learning that I want to now share. And sometimes I look back at what I used to do as a coach and like, oh, I really missed this. Or it's what I see constantly with coaches that they're not quite understanding what this means, and they're not using their skills.
Crypto, no. Crypto.
The large language models work.
Okay, so can you see who's talking and maybe mute them, Rasa?
I'll try, and
if you look on participants, you'll see who's not muted. Just mute them.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Sometimes when they're talking, they're not paying attention, so asking them to mute doesn't always work. All right, so I have a question that I want to start with to hear your ideas. So we're going to start with, what is the great value of coaching? I believe that knowing exactly, concisely what we do for people is important, not just for telling people what it is that you do, but also to keep in mind, what is it truly that I create that's different than other modalities? What is it that I want to provide people that's unique to coaching? And that way we stay in coaching. Because I'm often asked, yeah, but if they don't know, can I step in and give them ideas? But have you explored what they do know or what they've seen in the past in a similar situation? Have you explored that first? So I want to talk to you about the value of coaching. So if you would write, and I'm going to give you up to 5 words. Up to 5 words concisely. What is it that you think that people walk away with? So even if it's transformation, what will the transformation give them? So what is it that you would tell people, this is what you will walk away with if you coach with me? So if you could write, you have up to 5 words, what would you say? And
a fresh insight into themselves, evolution, growth, self-awareness, new mindset, clarity, joy, fulfillment, hope, self-awareness, clarity, connection, growth, insight, a place to be there, true self, clarity, calmness, another mindset, mindfulness, ownership, inspiration, self-awareness, growth and clarity, understanding what they want, a mirror of themselves, satisfaction, being heard, lighter shoulders, energy, alternatives, lightness, fulfillment, confidence, self-discovery, being in charge, empowerment, consciousness, unlock talent potential, progress, a way to coach yourself, actions, autonomy, time, space, honest, conversation with self, alternative direction,
Okay.
psychological grounding, possibilities.
Okay, great. So, as an end result, we do give people a space to explore and to create that self-awareness, to see possibilities, as you said. But we do this in a really special way. And this is why this is really important. And I love that a number of you said safe space, that connection that we create. So when we coach people, we're coaching their thinking. Okay. And this is so important that we transform the way they think. So transactional means to transaction, to change what we do. But transformation is to change our ideas, to change our thinking. But in order to do that, people really need to feel seen. And the amazing thing about seeing people is that there's so many times during the day where people, we just kind of talk to people, we kind of notice them, but we don't really see them. We don't stop and really look at them. And the gift we give people by seeing them, that they feel seen, this is something that we're hungry for, but we don't really fully get. We see them, which then helps them to recognize and claim their best self, which leads to both clarity and confidence, to move forward in their life in a way that they have not been able to do on their own. So I want to say that you can't really coach yourself, and if there's any emotion attached. If it's, something that's simple and you can talk yourself through some, what are my beliefs? What am I saying about this? You could, but if there's any emotion attached, your brain doesn't allow you to do that. So remembering that your gift, that you gift you give people, your purpose, is your presence, your care, and your courage, which then allows you to practice what you've learned as coaches. But it helps them to feel comfortable with you, that they will open up and explore their thinking in a way they can't do for themselves. So when we look at coaching, why we need coaches, the brain is not only a meaning-making machine, but the brain's primary function is to keep you safe. It's not to make you brilliant and, and analyze and make good choices. It's first and foremost to keep you safe. That's why we say, our automatic responses of fight and flight, come into play, because the brain is saying, I must protect you. I must protect you. But what happens is then we hold on to beliefs of what we see, how we define situations, and how we define ourselves. Because when we start to question what we see in a situation and who we are, then we're opening up the possibility that maybe I don't know. The brain doesn't like to not know. The brain doesn't like to not know. And so it won't really fully allow us to let go of past beliefs, of a little bit of certainty, if we're trying to do this on our own. Even though we know that life is uncertain and what will happen tomorrow, I don't know. If the pandemic didn't teach us anything, it taught us that we don't know what will happen. But we still like to hold on to some sense of, I do know what will happen, because that's what the brain wants us to do. And so this is why operating on our own is not all that effective. The brain prefers self-preservation over self-actualization. It's easier to defend what I define as reality, because we're all making it up anyway, than to question it. And so when we look at what we're doing for people, is to help them to look at how they're defining things and the choices they make based on their decisions. And what's happening is they will often rationalize why they made a decision, why they made this choice. because it's safer to rationalize it, even though in the back of our head saying, that's not good for you, or you should be doing this. It's easier to rationalize a choice than to question it. And that's what we do when left to our own devices, and without having someone outside of us to help us to question what we're really thinking. So we're master rationalizers. When I used to teach delegation in my leadership classes, I ran training departments for 16 years before I found coaching. I used to, when I would teach delegation or teach them something, I often wouldn't teach them the steps because they could find that somewhere else. They, probably know how to delegate, or they could easily find it on the internet. But what's stopping them? What's stopping them? And we'd list all the reasons. I first have them list. So how'd you spend your day yesterday? Okay, so they list all the things they did. And I said, on each one of those, what were the reasons that you didn't delegate this? And then we looked at each reason and to see, is this really a rationalization? Or is it truly a reason? And often they would say, well, I'm just busy. I don't want to take the time. I'm just not sure I trust anyone to do this, or I like doing it myself. So we'd get underneath what was causing the rationalization. So there were some times that it was a good reason because of confidentiality or urgency. But often they were making their choices based on rationalization because it was uncomfortable or they liked to do it. So when we look at what we rationalize, I'm often asking myself when I make a decision, so are you just rationalizing this because you don't want to do it? Or is there really a good reason? I mentioned this to a client of mine recently, and I asked him, he told me something that he had said he wanted to do this and he was avoiding it. And I said, so are you just rationalizing your inaction, or is there really stuff that's coming up? And he said, oh, rationalize. Oh, that's a really interesting word. So we talked about rationalization and what that meant to him. And he spent the whole next week listening to people. He came back to me and he said, everybody rationalizes. Everywhere I went, people had rationalizations for what they were doing. And certainly on TV, and all the politicians are always rationalizing their choices instead of asking why or exploring. So we are master rationalizers. It protects us to rationalize our choices instead of explore them. And the smarter you are, the better you are at rationalizing. You quickly come up with reasons without exploring or analyzing why we do what we do. This is one of the main reasons we need somebody outside of us, a coach, to help us look at our thinking. So the distinction of coaching is we disrupt and expand the way people think, that they instantly think. They create, models and choices based on past experience. When I first found coaching, it was right when neuroscience was coming out. It was kind of a new science, how to examine brain waves and what happens, in learning. And I read this one neuroscientist who said, we need external thought disruptors. We get stuck in our mental patterns. And we don't recognize that it's just a pattern from the past. So we need someone outside of us to interrupt our thinking. That's what we do as coaches. We're external thought disruptors that make them just stop for a moment and take a look at how you're thinking about this situation and how do you define yourself in this situation. And once we get them to start articulating their definitions, they see it out here and they're like, oh, and they can see, how they're thinking in a way that they can't for themselves and how their thinking is getting in the way of their progress. And, actually it's more fun just to be a thinking partner than to have to know all the answers. That, I'm just reflecting and summarizing. So this is what you're saying is important to you. And I might even use closed questions up front to clarify. Is that truly the thing that's most top of mind? So I might use that up front to make sure that I understand what they want to create, what's getting in the way. And then once we agree to what their problem is and what they want instead, then I'll open it up and use more open questions. But it's still based on what they're giving me, what they're saying, what they're saying. And it's easier and far more fun for me just to pick out words, ask them, what do you mean by that? How does that relate to what you want? Than it is, again, for me to know what to tell them to do, which may not work because I've not lived their experience. So I want to share this research. It came out right when I was turned in my manuscript for breakthrough coaching. In fact, I turned it in and I had to beg for them to let me put it in the book. This research, I'm hoping somebody in a university or in a research center will expand it. It came out in April, and it was just 16 managers that they talked to them and they found like a problem that was similar to all of them. And they gave them 3 scenarios and a little button that they were to push it every time they had a creative insight. And so the first scenario, and they put a brainwave monitor on their head to monitor their brain activity. The first scenario, they put them in a room all by themselves, a very comfortable room, and and just gave them a little time to think about their problem situation. And just as they analyzed and thought about it, did they have any insights? Well, if you look at the first column, there was a little bit of activity. Some people had a little bit more activity. They liked analyzing their thinking. I think somebody fell asleep, maybe a couple people, not a lot. And they had a few insights, but not a lot. Then they took them and they gave them all a mentor, somebody to give them some advice, to share their stories of how they dealt with this. And you'll see there wasn't much difference in the brain activity in the next 2 columns. And what we know is that when you tell people what to do, or mentor them, that unless they have a huge emotional response like, wow, I never thought about that, thank you, that it's not likely it's going to embed in their brain. There must be emotion attached to a thought to go into long-term memory. Otherwise, it just sits in the cognitive soup, and then when you go to sleep, you probably throw it all out. Maybe you'll remember for a day or 2, and then you forget. It's like when you read a book and you try to remember what you read, So mentoring didn't create that many more ideas or activity. Excuse me. But then they gave them a coach, somebody trained in reflective inquiry. And those of you who have read Coach the Person, I believe it's even translated, right? in Lithuanian. You see how much I really want people to understand the power of reflection. Somebody just asked me this morning, how does your way of coaching differ from traditional? And I'm like, well, I helped to write the competencies at the beginning. I think I'm teaching the competencies. But if you look into the competencies, it never said you only ask questions. It always said reflect, what the person is saying, summarize, reflect their emotional responses and who they think they are. There was always reflection in the competencies. I didn't make it up. So the idea of reflection. So I don't know where some people, when they teach, say you can only ask open questions and that's it. It's like, no, I often will just reflect. And that's enough for people to say, oh, I said that, didn't I? I'll say, well, I'll pick out a key word. Like a couple of weeks ago, this woman said, well, I just want to make sure I choose the right path. And I said, right path. You've said that 3 times now. What does right path mean to you? So I pick out the key words and then I ask them questions and then I will clarify. So you said right path means the one that brings you the most fulfillment. Is that what you're looking for, is more fulfillment in your next chapter? So you see, it's a closed question, but it's based on what they gave me. So reflections and open-ended questions, or occasionally a clarification closed question. And if you look at the last columns, coaching spark the middle brain where we have creative insights. And when you spark the middle brain, you're actually kind of rewiring, and it's more permanent. They will remember. And the discovery process gives them more confidence to move forward. So if anything, just to demonstrate this research that coaching leads to really activating the brain to come up with insights that you can't come up with on your own. That's the great purpose of coaching, that we're there to stimulate creative thinking, to see their situation and themselves in new ways, in a way they cannot do on their own, or they won't. They'll go into the room and just fall asleep. I don't know, but the brain doesn't allow us to really go in and question our thinking on our own. It wants to protect the way we see things, but if someone outside of us, an external thought disruptor, does this, then we start to do this. It's like, okay, somehow the brain allows that to happen. So it's really powerful just to have someone to help us to hear our thinking. And you don't have to be a perfect coach to go do this. I know coaches feel like, oh, I need to reach a level of skill before I go coach. No, you don't. Just hold a safe space and let them talk and just share, summarize what they're saying and ask them questions. It's simpler than you think. It's simpler than you think. We're just helping them to hear their thinking. And that's amazing how it creates an expansion of perspective of both self and the situation. That creates a transformation of thought. So I have 2 master's degrees. My second one was in adult learning, only because I ended up running training departments and had to design training. It kind of fell in my lap, and I had to figure out how to do this. But it sparked my interest in learning. How do people learn? How do they learn and grow? And I kept researching and going to workshops and making my classes better. And people would give me happy faces when they'd attend my training, and then they'd go out and they'd try new behavior, but as soon as it felt awkward, they went back to the old. And those of us who are in or were in the training space, that retention of learning is still not that great from training. That I always say training inspires people to learn more, to go on, go forward, and maybe get someone to work with them through some of the things that were awkward or they're afraid. It just inspires them to try. That's it. It was the last day of my last job. I had resigned, and I thought I was just going to go teach leadership classes, that somebody sent me this article. It was 1995. And I'm so glad I came in early into the coaching world. It was this thing called coaching. And I'm like, this sounds really interesting. So I'm one of these that it sounds interesting. I think I'll do it. I don't think about it. I just jump over the cliff. So I signed up for a coaching school, and then I watched somebody coach, and I said, something else is going on here. So it inspired me onto the journey of understanding, how does coaching impact the brain? It led me to getting my doctorate in organizational psychology, but mostly because I wanted to understand how coaching impacts the brain. And I see coaching as a learning technology, not a therapy. When people say, oh, it's like a therapy, I say, not really. It's a way we learn. It's insight-based learning. So it's not fact-based learning like you learn in school. They open the brain, they dump in facts, they quiz you. And that if I gave you those quizzes today, you probably wouldn't pass because it's just memorization and cognitive learning. Or fear-based learning. You better do this or else. And a lot of performance review systems are based on threat and reward. And people will change what they do if they're afraid. But then you want them to be agile and to change again, to change things now that we know things can be different. And their brain really protects what they learned under fear. And so we say people don't like change. No, they do. They change all the time. They change Well, women, we change our hair, we change our clothes, we change where we live. We just don't like to change that which we first learned based on fear. So, I mean, if you can get away from that and help people explore and they learn through coaching, then it's easier to be agile and to change in the future through coaching as well. So coaching is insight-based learning. It activates the middle brain, those creative insights that expand our perception of not just the situation, but who I am in this situation. And if you read my current book, you'll see I'm really moving toward identity-based coaching is so powerful. So, I mean, first I want to hear what is their perception of the problem, and really look at, so what would you want to happen instead of what you have now? But once we define what they want to create, I say, who are you in that picture? And they'll define who they can be. Then I'll say, okay, let's look at now what's going on. How would you define yourself now? What's the gap? And it's amazing when they start to see that their self-definition is the problem. I'm just a new leader. Why would anyone listen to me? Or I'm not comfortable. I'm just returning, and people will see me as lacking experience. I mean, there's just so much tied into who I am that's holding them back. So coaching expands the who I am, which is ego. Ego is just who I am, how I define myself. It's not a bad thing, who I am and how I see the world. And so we can start to expand or change their beliefs and the rules they think they need to live by, the shoulds, which gives them a different perspective of what they see and who they can be. So we coach people to see their thinking, which gives them the clarity and confidence to explore what else. This is the gift that we're privileged to witness, and I see coaching as what a privilege that I have, that people ask me to help them think, and it's great because I've been around coaching long enough that a lot of people know me, and I write books, so I create more visibility. I've always said I market by visibility. And I have the privilege to coach them. What a gift that is. So it is simpler than you think, and how many coaches say, well, I just want to make sure that I'm good at my skills before I go coach people. No, you don't. In my very first coaching class, it was with Thomas Leonard, who started Coach U and the International Coaching Federation. And it was the first class. And he said, here's some basic elements, but you know what? You can only learn coaching by going to do it. So go coach. And they're like, well, how can we coach? We haven't really learned any skills. We haven't applied. And he said, oh, just go love them. And I'll never forget that. That's when I first started exploring. It's the energy we bring, that people know we are there for them, that we trust that they're smart, they're just a little stuck, and, they're only seeing it this way, but if I can help them see it this way, they'll discover it. And I trust that. And so I'm just creating a safe space for them to do that. So I will continue to learn my skills, but I can hold this space for them no matter what I know. So even for me, I do a lot of these online programs for coaching.com, and we just started a mastery program. We did kind of an inaugural program. We'll be announcing it soon as we get through coaching week. But I had to then put my original program into self-study. So I had to watch 32 demos from 2020 of me coaching. Oh my God, it was awful. And it was amazing to me. I didn't even choose. I had to choose like 10 demos. I didn't choose any from 2020. It's like, what was I doing? And yes, people loved the coaching and they said it was great, but each year I got better. Each year I got better. So even after coaching, for 25 years, I still have so much to learn. So you're never going to be perfect, and just like, okay, I'm learning. So trust that. Just show up and be there for them. And remember then, if you're just practicing helping them see the stories that they're living by, that you're just reflecting what you're giving them. Help them to see the story. They say you have to see outside of the box, but you can't see outside of the box if you don't see the box in the first place. And it's the same thing in coaching. Please don't start your coaching by saying, so what do you want out of our time together? Because they don't know. So just ask them, so what's on your mind? Have you thought about what you want to explore with me today? If they say, oh, I don't know, I haven't had time, say, well, did anything happen in the last week that you left thinking, oh, that wasn't great, I could have done better? Or, you're worried about something in the future. We usually come up with something. But then let them tell you their story around this. What happened? Describe to me what you see as a dilemma, as a problem. Start there. And then just be listening to what they're saying, and ask them to define certain words. What do you mean by, like the woman who said, I want the right path. I want the right path. What is right to you? I just want to feel stronger in this situation. What do you mean stronger, physically or mentally? Get clarification about what they're saying first. And that clarification is going to help them start seeing their thinking alone, and they're going to start seeing their situation in a different way. Then you can flip it as to what is it you want to create? How would you like this story to end? What is it that you want that you don't have now? And then once they define that, who are you in that picture? Who are you in that picture? And you'll often see that who they are in the picture of what they want to create differs from how they define themselves now. Then you coach to the gap. You coach to the gap. So we use concise reflections. Please be concise. Please don't state a reflection or ask a question and then explain it. Just state it and let them, if they don't understand, then you can restate it. But all that time you spend asking it 3 times and saying why you're asking it, it's confusing, and it doesn't, it diffuses, it diminishes the power of coaching. So work on your concise reflections and questions. And above all, they have to feel safe with you. So knowing that you're creating a very safe space for them, even before you talk to them, that you set your mindset. I love the new competency of coaching mindset, that I'm fully present before I even enter the room or get on Zoom, that you don't work at it while you're there. So this is what we do for clients. We help them to climb a tree in their brain so they look down on their thinking. Or I like to say, we hold it out here. Let's look at it together. And they can't do this. They can't pull it out of their head on their own. We pull it out of their head and take a look at it, where they start to see their contradictions and the cracks in what they're saying. It's like, yeah, that's kind of crazy. I said that. Or, when they say, oh, I know that, that these people are going to get really resistant when I say this. Well, what leads you to believe they'll be resistant? What are the assumptions that they're making? Is it really just their fear, or is there a reality to their assumptions? And just getting them to state their fears out loud. Every time they use the word but, they're going to tell you what they're afraid of afterwards. So just share that. And I really want to do this, but nobody's going to accept me in this new position. So what makes you think? You said nobody's going to accept you. What makes you believe that? What has happened and what has occurred that makes you feel they're not going to accept you? Sometimes it's real. I had a woman say, well, because I was promoted 2 levels above all these people. I said, so is it about confidence in stepping into this position, or is it that you want to find a new way of engaging with these people that may be frustrated that you were given the position? You know, it helps you once they state their fear out loud, it helps you both to define what they really want. And anytime they say should, call it out. Who's saying should? Is it their family? Is it their peers? Um, is it something in their head based on the past? Should usually keep us from creating what we want. How are their shoulds getting in the way of their dreams? And the should may be real, you know, for today. But maybe in the future, I was coaching this woman in China, which I'm on my way back to China in a couple of days. And she said, "Oh, I have a great position, but I'm so sick of these people, and I'm bored with what I'm doing." I said, "So is it that you want to look at creating shifting the job you have, or finding something new?" And she said, "Well, you know, and I really like to find something new, but I can't, you know, because, you know, my family would be worried, and all my friends, they would think I'm stupid because I have a great salary. And, you know, this is like something special that a woman has this high position." I said, "Well, that's a lot of shoulds. You've got family, you've got peers, you've got society. Um, what is it you want? You said you wanted something new before you gave me all the shoulds." She says, I do, but I just don't think it's good timing." I said, "So do you want to look at what that still looks like, that you could hold it out as a future possibility and start moving toward that today?" And, you know, she said, okay. And then she kept saying, you know, but I'm so sick of the way things are going now. And I said to her, you know, you keep coming back to what you don't like. You know, are you sure you don't want to start creating what you want instead today? I can't. I said, okay. So do you need to be able to develop your ability to deal with what you don't like today in order to stay there longer until you can change? You know, and she said, okay, let's coach on that. How can I deal with my emotional state, dealing with the way work is? Okay, we worked on that. So this was a demonstration in a class. And after lunch, a couple hours later, she came back to me and she said, "Thank you. I now know that I want to change my job. You went through all that and I thought about it. And of course, you know what, if it doesn't work, I'll go get another job. It's crazy that I'm holding myself back." So sometimes coaching happens between the gaps after you explore with them and they're so stuck in their rationalizations that it takes a while to think about it. So that was great. So, you know, we're just reflecting what we hear so they stop and think about their thinking. You know, and so if you listen to my demos, I got a ton of demos on YouTube. And I think you'll get all those links. I think, visit Viva, that, you know, we'll give you the links to my YouTube and LinkedIn. But you'll see that I often say, okay, so let me just summarize what you're saying. Is this what you said? Is this what you meant? What do you mean by that? I ask questions, a lot of questions about meaning before we get to an agreement on what they want to create. So I still get to the agreement. I'm still doing the competencies, but I want to know what they mean, what they see, because we're going to clarify what they really want more deeply. And then we agree to that. You know, what it really looks like that they want to create that they don't have now. So coach them a little before you get to that agreement. But notice when they pause and look away and just ask, you know, so you stop for a second, would you share what's coming up for you right now? You know, or when oftentimes the throwaway statement, they say something under their breath, you know, you just said something and I'm not sure what it was. Would you share that with me? Or I had a leader once, he like, you know, he went like this and he went, you know, I shouldn't have done that. And I said, okay, so you just kind of like looked down, you were rubbing your head and you said something about you shouldn't have done that. Would you share with me what that means to you? You know, and he went, and he sighed. And I said, you just shifted there. It's almost like you got sad. He goes, not sad. I'm embarrassed. It's really kind of my fault what's happening here. I kind of didn't give her enough resources and that's why she's failing. And I just hate to admit that. It changed the coaching just by listening to the mumbling and asking about it, or noticing a shift in emotion. So we want to be curious about their meanings, the beliefs that are defining the story, this assumptions they're making up. What else could happen? And then we get to what it is they want to create for themselves. And then you look at, so what's getting in the way of you, smart person? What needs to be addressed or resolved to create what you want? And that's what coaching is. And as you look at what needs to be addressed or resolved, they're going to start having insights. You listen deeply to what they're saying. You reflect it back to them. And that's what evokes the awareness, that those creative insights that lead to new action. So just share what you think you heard them say. And if you're wrong, they'll tell you. It doesn't matter. You don't have to get it exactly right. And maybe they'll say, yeah, I know I said that, but that's not what I really mean. But it just helps them to think more deeply when you do this. And always share emotional shifts. And don't worry if they have a strong reaction, if they get really frustrated or even angry. I had I'd had this client, I had her for a number of years. She was very, very emotional, very high strung. And I just simply asked her a question. She was talking about something she did with her kids. And I said, do you think that they really understood your intention with that? And she started screaming at me and like, you don't know, you don't have kids. And she hung up on me. And I'm like, well, that was fascinating. And it took her, she didn't call me back to the next day. But I didn't jump in to say, oh, I'm so sorry. I just let it play out a little bit. And she came back. She said, okay, I get it. But I still like, so what is it that you get? And she said, well, sometimes my reactions are not based on the situation. I'm just, it's something that I want, but maybe it doesn't match with what they want. And we had a whole bunch of different scenarios to explore what that might occur. So, and when they cry, please don't jump in to fix them or say, it's okay, don't feel that way. Don't tell anyone ever, don't feel that way. They just do, just accept it. That's the way they're feeling. And crying is just a way to clear things. They saw something new. That means there's a new awareness. Give them space. Just hold the silence with compassion. And all emotions have an arc. There's the trigger, there's the intensity. And then it starts to diminish. As you sense energetically, you'll feel it in your body that they're starting to diminish. Then you could say, would you be willing to share with me what just occurred? What is coming up to you now? And if you wait till that moment, they're usually willing, and maybe you need to help them get, more clarify that. That sense of, if they say, well, yeah, I kind of see it differently now. Well, what's different? What's different than before? It's that awareness that's going to lead to what's next. So the question you should always be asking is, what's getting in the way of this smart, capable, and resourceful person from seeing a way forward to what they desire to change or create? And in order to do that, you have to really create safety and trust. I know the competency is trust and safety, but I don't think they trust you unless they feel safe. So the space you hold, how they feel, the energy, the emotions they feel from you, create the safety. So you cannot get stuck in their emotional reactions. You might feel their reaction and so you can understand it, but then you have to release it. Don't get stuck in their story. Stay courageously and compassionately present. Hold a safe space for them so they can continue exploration with you. So there's 3 mental habits that I'm going to quickly share, and I'm going to give you some resources that will help you develop. So the first one, I learned this actually when I wrote, before Coach the Person, I wrote Discomfort Zone, and I started to find the research on opening your head, heart, and gut. All attached to the nervous system. When you fully open your nervous system, what you will hear differently from your clients, and that they will feel safe. So you will get this link in your chat box, there's a whole page there with videos and all kinds of things. But in the middle of the page is a visualization of how to open your head, heart, and gut. It's written and it's also verbal. I recorded it. This is so important. So when people ask me, when they see a demo, what were you thinking? I rarely think when I coach, and I mean it. I'm just, since I'm picking up, okay, that seems to be what's important to them, and I offer it back. I don't think about it. I pick it up, I offer it back, and see what they say. And then I might ask a question about it, but it comes from my curiosity, not my memory. I'm not remembering a question to ask. At the beginning, I might say, so what is it you want instead of what you have? Okay, I use that. At the end, once they have an awareness, I'll say, so you just seem to be seeing things in a different way. Would you share that with me? And then I'll ask, so does this change what you want to create for yourself, or are you ready to take actions? What will you do by when? I always ask the when question when I go to wrap it up. So please, you have lots of resources that will then allow you, when I say don't just listen, which is the cognitive process, really be fully open. You're going to pick up things. Your head, your gut and your heart's always talking to your brain because it's all connected, but it doesn't have a voice. So it sends it to your brain translates it, and so we don't tend to listen to our heart and gut. So the thing is, get out of your head. Do you know when you're thinking about what they're saying or what you should say next? Stop it. You will miss things. You will miss things. Trust what you know. Coach to the best you can in this moment, and then you'll just get better. You'll just get better. Trust that. And then finally, you got to release your judgment. I've really come to understand the power of releasing judgment. I have the great opportunity to coach all over the world. And I go to many countries where people will say things and it totally triggers my, judgment because my value system is totally different. But who cares, if it has nothing to do with the coaching. But I'll feel it in my body. I'll feel it in my body. So the moment that you think what they're saying is right or wrong, and you have a twitch, and for me, my judgment comes right here in my solar plexus. But you will feel a tension in your body. You've got to breathe in and let it go, and don't assume you know what they're saying. You don't know this person's life. Don't assume. Ask, what do you mean by that? Ask a lot of what do you mean by that questions. And you'll see they may mean something totally different than you thought. And leap to knowing what is best for them. Be careful of that. When you think they need your advice, you're judging them. You're judging them. Can you give up being the expert, the fixer? To be their thinking partner that you happen to use, coaching in the way we define it, because, a lot of people define coaching in different ways. Can you give up that? To be their thinking partner, which is so powerful and it's such a gift. So here's your homework. I want you to start identifying where you feel judgment in your body, and you're going to find you judge all day long because it's our brain's protective mechanism. So go places where you get triggered, like for me, the grocery store on a busy day, or the airport. I'm headed out tomorrow. Will be crazy first thing in the morning. And my family, I just get near my sister's house and my body goes, eh. So find places where you can go and it triggers, and notice where you feel it. So you can notice when you're coaching, there's a tension. Can I breathe and release it and come back to being there for the person? Just have them feel I am here for you. So the moment you feel like provoking, convincing, leading them, just come back to I'm here for you. I am your partner. I'm not the expert. I'm not, the person who knows the answers. I'm just here for you to think about your thinking and how powerful that is. So use your presence to ensure they feel seen, understood, and valued, that they know stuff and who they are. Give up knowing, be curious, and believe they are creative, capable, and worthwhile. the ICF defines coaching as a partnership in this conversation that is a creative conversation where they have insights, because they are creative, capable, and worthwhile, and that's what we do, is we bring that forward. So you're also going to get a link to This Is My Gift to You. This toolbox is like the highlights from Breakthrough Coaching, and it has some of the resources and some of the exercises you can do with each other. So you're welcome to have it, download it and have it, and enjoy it, So with that, we have a little bit of time left to answer your questions. A few questions.
Yeah, we have one beautiful insight. Even if we as coaches think we're not doing a great job, it can still be super helpful for the clients. Listening is an impactful intervention too.
Yeah. I just want to say that, when I go back and look at the testimonials of my clients, my first 2 years of coaching, I don't know what I was doing, but they loved it. It's like, I come up with so many ideas with her, so yeah, trust that the safe space you give them is the most powerful gift.
Yeah, another question is, when they say should do SG, maybe Judith, you can say what is SG, is similar to it when they say they need to do SG. It's maybe an example. When they say should do SG is...
I know that when they say that they should do something, is similar to that when they say I need to do something.
Oh, it could be, so what makes you think you need to do that? Yeah. So yeah, I would just ask about it. I should do something. So, is what makes you think you should do it? Is there any other possibility? So I'd explore both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of something. And I see hand, Meg. I see you have a question.
Hi. Yes, thank you. Hi, Marcia. Thank you so much. I just read Coach the Person. I wondered if you could touch just quickly on, in the use of reflective inquiry, you talk about that you can infuse words that perhaps they didn't use to test how they feel about something. Can you talk about that very, very strategic nuance?
You want to be careful you're not interpreting, but don't worry if you are, if you're wrong, they'll tell you, and that's okay. But sometimes they go through long explanations and a word comes up to me that kind of encapsulates what they're saying. So it's always based on what they gave me. So, I had this client, and he went from job to job to job because he was seen as an expert in coming in and changing everything real quickly, and then he'd go on to something else. And he said, I just got a really great job offer in a really cool country, and my kids could go to school, but I don't know why I'm not taking it. And so I said, so what's different with this job you're doing now than the others? And he said, the CEO, we talk all the time. He trusts me. He's given me some leadership positions. I've never had that before, and he's doing all these things. And I said, so he's giving you opportunities that you didn't have before. And he said, yeah, this is pretty amazing. And so I said, it sounds to me, because of what he's giving you, that you're kind of loyal to him. And he went, loyalty. That's it. I've never been loyal before, And so it just came up, and he could have said no, but it's just that, he never had a reason to stay before, but now, it's almost like he felt guilty of leaving this guy, and I didn't say guilt. I just said that was what came up to me. So, again, just offer it, but always as an invitation, and let them respond. So now and then it's an encapsulation of what you hear. That you just offered. Sounds as if. Always, it sounds as if. Okay?
Yeah, so we have 4 minutes left, and we have 3 questions, 2 questions in the chat box, and one, and one is Larissa online. So I'll just go through the chat. And when a client assumes he is afraid to delegate because he will lose the control.
Well, if that's what he says, no, I feel like if I have other people doing it, I will lose control. I would just explore. So what is it you're controlling? What is it you think you're holding on to? So I would start there, use their words. If you were to let go of control, what would happen? So I would explore that first. And is there a truth to that if you allowed all of them to do it, what would it give you time to do? And is delegating really just about giving people tasks? What is it that you're really doing by delegating? I would explore that as well. Okay.
Okay, Larissa, we have, do we have your question? Please unmute.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, Marcia, I have a question about cultural differences. When you share with us that you travel all over the world, I'm curious, do you prepare and research various cultures? Do you rely on questions like, what do you mean by that? Or is there what do you use to actually understand? So that's the big question. Thank you.
I get it. No is the answer. I learned early on when people told me what a culture was like and what I should do that they were often wrong. Even when people say, oh, Americans are, it makes me crazy. It's like, which ones? North, south, east, west were very different. I'm going to China. Shanghai is different than Beijing, and certainly different than Shenzhen. So, an age of people and things are changing. So I just come in with curiosity and I don't know. So if I'm making an assumption based on what I think is their culture, other than, some major things, well, even that, everything's changing, even countries that I thought I would never go to, they're changing. So allow cultures to change and people to change and just be curious. I have no problem with it, except for catching my judgment when they start to say something and I'm like, That's all. Yeah, you're welcome. One more question?
Thank you.
Yeah, we have one more question from Rana. Rana, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much. It was really very insightful session and I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you, really. My question is, at the very first beginning, Coach, you said that don't insist on how or what you are looking for at the end of this session.
Yeah.
And yes, it do really, I'm facing this with my clients because most of them, they just stop talking because they don't know.
Can I answer that? Because we're running out of time. All
Yeah.
right. And I really am on a tight schedule with all the presentations I'm doing. So what I said was, do not start the coaching session. Your very first thing you say, what do you want out of this session? Because they don't know. All they're going to do is articulate the problem when you say that. They're not going to tell you what they want to create or have instead of what they have. So just open it generically with, so what is it that's going on that you really want to explore with me today? What's the challenge that you're facing that would be useful for us to talk about? Open it generically. Then you're going to hear their story. And within the story, you're going to explore some keywords and finally get to what is the heart of what they see as the problem. Then I ask, so what is it that you would like to have or create that you don't have now? Is that what it is you want to work on together? That's the question. It's only after they've stated the problem and you've explored it and clarified things that they can truly say what they want instead of what they have, which is the agreement as to what you're going to work on in this session. Okay, so I won't ask that explicitly. I'll just say, okay, so what you want to have is a way of redefining the relationship with your boss. What would an ideal relationship look like? is that what you want to, you know, and then they'd say it. And it's like, is that what you want to explore creating in our time together? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Okay. So with
Yeah,
that,
so thank you very much. As we come to the end of this event, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and for our lecture and everyone participators today. Thank you very much.
yeah, you're welcome.
And
Thank
to
you all for
celebrate.
being a coach. We all need coaches in this world. I'm so happy to be here with you. So have a good afternoon, evening, and I'm going to get on with my day.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.